What's up, everyone? Before we get started with the levels of consciousness, we always want to shout out our sponsorship, right? All Circles Media. All Circles Media is a team of photographers, videographers, graphic designers, artists, music producers, vocal recording, mixing engineers, and live performers. All Circles specializes in producing high-quality content for various companies and individuals to promote themselves and their business. You can connect with the man, the myth, the legend, Adam Robb, on All Circles Media Instagram and their website. They just dropped a new mixtape, Rogue Ones.
Yep, Rogue Ones, or Rogue Tapes.
Rogue Tapes.
Buy the Rogue Ones.
Yeah, buy the Rogue Ones.
Yes.
Just had a sold out initial concert, which was wild.
Not to be confused with the hit Star Wars movie Rogue One. It's got an S at the
end. You can find that where?
Anywhere you can listen to music, Spotify. We got
30,000 plus streams on Spotify already.
It's been getting some traction.
Love that. Love that. We also want to show our most love and appreciation to our other sponsor, Apex Communications, with the man, the myth, the legend. You know, Jan running things. Apex Communications Network is a bootstrap marketing consulting group founded in a small town in the Midwest. With a network of over 50 independent contractors nationwide, Apex is capable of providing wraparound marketing and business development services, ranging from website design and development to leadership and development consulting services. If you wish to contact and connect with my boy Jan, co-founder, today, hit him up on LinkedIn or Facebook or even at the LOC page.
And spell it like Jan.
Yep.
Jan.
But it's Jan.
Yeah. The amount of people that I've gotten shout outs from, and they're like, I tried to find you and I can't find you. Did you use a J? And they're like, no. There it is.
Yep.
My wife did that when she first would see your text message comes out. She'd be like, who's Jan? Like, honey, Jan. She's like, oh.
I didn't even care what to say. I just feel some type of way. Everything will be okay. We just gotta keep the faith. No, we late to the party. Sorry for the wait. TBH, I ain't sorry. I don't even know where to go, but I'm here now.
Yeah, everybody, what's up? What's happening? You, welcome to the levels of consciousness. You
welcome.
We appreciate you guys coming, joining, hanging with us. We're coming to you live on a Sunday afternoon after we just got blessed, on our usual Sunday proceedings.
Heck yeah.
I hope you guys enjoyed our latest podcast, which you can find on our YouTube page. You can also follow us at the LOC Pod on Instagram. IG. Most of our content will be put out on YouTube and IG for now. As things get rolling, we will consider opening it up to, your Spotify's and your Apples and making sure we're found anywhere that you can find a podcast with. I am 1/3 of the podcast queue, your resident counselor, your former soccer coach, husband, and father. To my right, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Adam Robb. Hey. Yes, sir. Get them sound bites in, baby.
Sound bites on deck.
CEO of All Circles Media, all things creative, the engineer, architect, designer, the driver of this podcast. Across from both of us is the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Jan Almasy.
Yo.
Slob life. There's a lot of myths and legends in this room.
Yes, sir. Jan is our residential entrepreneur, big brain, former psychiatric nurse, former military specialist extraordinaire. You want to know things, you ask this man across the table. And
you can tell by his watch.
He
was in the military.
Yeah, I wear it on the inside of my wrist. Yeah.
And we are very appreciative of you guys being with us. As always, we always want to start out with gratitude first and foremost. We are very appreciative to Adam Robb opening up the podcast space for us. This is a beautiful space. If you are somebody local in the Canton area, or if you're not local to the Canton area, please always know that this space is available to you. There is special offers that All Circles Media offer to allow new podcasters, people that are interested in doing some videography stuff, to come in and utilize this beautiful space. So it's not just for us, it's for everyone.
It's for everybody. And if you want to go check that out, All Circles Media, we have a podcast section So you can get in touch.
Fantastic. So where we're going today, it's very interesting when you know that you have two CEOs that you sit with, and that's kind of scary to say sometimes, because when you think of CEOs, you think of these big Fortune 500 companies. You think of guys that are, buying NFL teams and just have wasting lots of money.
Yeah.
to
burning money.
But we do have two gentlemen here that can talk about what it is to run a business. Quietly and interestingly, we can make that 3, because I am stepping out into a CEOs space on a little project,
Dun, dun, dun.
which I will talk to you more about here at some point in time. But there is a project in the works that will put me in an ownership
And the audience about to be on pins and needles.
position for sure.
Okay, Q.
Tantalizing.
Yeah. So, what we're going to bring to you today is just...
I was just thinking of it.
I'm sorry. I
Adjectives.
tried to hold it together so much. Oh my God, Adam, you kill me, man.
This is what you get from the boys on either the end of the week or
Yeah.
you look at a Sunday as the start of the week. This is just what you get.
Yeah.
So please bear with us.
Yeah, we're figuring.
Adam always be saying some out of pocket stuff though. Like, we'll just be chilling or something, and it's always when it gets dead
Really
quiet,
quiet.
and then he just injects something crazy.
It's that comedic timing, dude.
Yeah, man.
You gotta have that guy. You just need that, right? So where did this topic come from, right? The 3 of us have been sitting around talking about. Again, we're always going to talk about this from a deep cognitive perspective. That's why it's the levels of consciousness.
We're all nerds.
And a topic came up of what does it feel like when you have the burden of power and the burden of responsibility. And so as a therapist, I often find myself telling a lot of people, I will not be surprised by anything in the rest of my life, by any phase of life, because I counsel across the board, across the lifespan. I talk to people that are 65 plus, and I start to hear what it is to kind of get into that. And this is with all due respect. I'm not going to say something disrespectful after you say that. With people that are in that stage of geriatric, of what they're considered in geriatric age. So I get to understand kind of the things that they're facing and the mental struggles. Some of my friends are dying now.
You're in the generativity
There you go.
stage, right?
There you go.
Versus stagnating.
Right. So then I also get to talk with teenagers. I get to talk with their parents. So now I'm getting a gauge of on 2 different levels, what are the mental fatigue and the mental worries and the strain and stress that's going on in there. Then you get into that 21 to 30, 40 range, and whether that's marital, whether that's, a mental health diagnosis, I hear it all.
Midlife crisis.
Yeah. I hear it all. So for me, nothing, and I tell a lot of people this, if my marriage failed, heaven forbid it doesn't, I'm probably going to know exactly why it's failing.
Right.
Because of the nature of my job. If my kids start acting strangely in their development, or they start approaching that, pre-adolescent stage and they get more attitude, I'm going to know exactly what that looks like. But the troubling thing is I can't approach my wife from a clinical standpoint. I can't approach my kids from a clinical standpoint, because the worst possible thing that I will hear from either of them when I'm saying 12 years down the road is, yeah, let me know when my dad walks through the door.
Right.
Yeah, let me know when my husband checks in. The moment they say that to me, that means work has not been gated. I have not compartmentalized work, and there's a problem.
Yeah.
Right.
So it can be very difficult.
I'm sure there's a fine line to walk there, though. I can't see you not using the knowledge that you've gained to enhance the outcome. You can gate it to an extent. You can make sure you're not sitting down and in a conversation being like, well, why do you feel that way? You know what I mean? But regardless of maybe consciously you gate doing those extrinsic acts, those external showcasing of skill, or, therapizing somebody. But to your point, you're going to know what phases look like. You know, your intuition is so tuned that dad and therapist are like one thing.
It's nasty.
You know what I mean?
I know, like, and this is a weird example, like you probably go through it as well, like when like you're put in situations where it's like your job. Like if I go to like a wedding I'm just attending, I feel like I'm judging everything. Like it's hard to turn.
That's why I don't watch TV.
Switch off. Yeah,
I'm looking at all the commercials. Like,
what are they doing?
Billboards, newspaper ads.
Yeah.
Like, I see it everywhere.
And so like it can be hard to like, and especially with like your kids know what you do, and like a lot of people, they don't want to be like, they don't want to, like, as soon as people know that they're being like psychoanalyzed without their like permission, I guess,
Not
like
good.
it can get
not good.
it can get hairy,
Not
and then they
good.
shut down even more. So I guess that could be very difficult. I can imagine.
I think Friends, like late early 2000s sitcom, they, if I'm thinking correctly, Phoebe started dating a therapist, and by the end of the episode, she broke up with him because he was starting to like psychoanalyze all of them.
Yep.
And then he told them what the problem was, and they're like, all right, don't let the door hit you on the way.
Right.
They're like, don't
right.
psychoanalyze me.
Yeah, they were not thrilled. And I think from a music standpoint, something that I'm fortunate for is I didn't get deep enough into the production side of it to the point where I can't listen to music without listening to it through the eyes of like, well, why did they pan this guitar on this side? Why is this up? Maybe that has a little bit too much reverb. So you like can't ever go into an environment, even in your car, where you can just listen to music from
and chill.
What is that? Subjective.
Subjective would be like your own personal interpretation.
Yeah.
Trying to find objective would be more of that analyzing. Like, is this right or wrong? Could they have done this different?
They just can't step back and like enjoy a record.
Yeah, have the experience.
It's like, oh, well, I'll reference Kanye because he came out with a new record or a new album. It's like, oh, well, why did I can hear the layers of this. I can hear the little touch that like the average listener who doesn't have the trained ear can hear. But that's kind of sad.
Yeah.
It's like you can't just enjoy the body of work, or you can't go to a show and step back and enjoy what sound you're hearing. You're always in this state of, I wouldn't have panned it that way, or I would have turned this level down like that. So that's similar effect.
Yeah, I mean, I think like after kind of thinking about the point that I was kind of driving at the intersection of like therapist and dad, I think you brought up something that actually maybe Adam brought it up, but you can't, the skill sets, how to approach the conversations and stuff, but the temptation is to use those skills to try and shape the situation in what you think it should be, and that's where the line gets drawn.
Yeah.
Like if you're using those skills to try to navigate a difficult situation, but taking the situation as it is and not trying to like impose your will through questions or other stuff like that, that's where I find that people start to lose the appreciation of knowing that you have that background and start to resent you for having it, because you're like weaponizing it in a way.
Sure.
Whether that's with bad intention, or I think you can still weaponize knowledge with good intention and it still, has a negative effect on the person. So
even in my relationship, right? Like if my wife and I are not spending enough time together, I'm probably going to know, but having the ability to broach the topic in a way that is receivable by her.
Right.
It's not like, hey, we should probably take a date night here or something like that. Or, hey, we're like getting disconnected or something of that nature. I probably am more attuned to that because I just sat with like 3, 4, 5 couples throughout the 5-day week.
And and then
had
you don't
to talk
need
about
to,
it.
like Olivia to listen to this, but you don't need to put it on her radar, right? You could just be like, hey, babe, like, let's go. Like, I've got the babysitter put together, put out a date night, make it a romantic gesture.
Right.
And then that's, I think, an example of using your skill and that awareness in a positive way.
Right.
You're not going up to her and being like, we need to spend more time together. It's just,
We need to have deeper conversations.
right. You make it feel spontaneous and make it romantic, and then be like, hey, I'm putting forth this effort as a man, to invest in our relationship. Right. And like she views it as, a spontaneous,
And it just like
showcase of love and want to, spend time together.
It's just like a hard accountability, right? And I think that's where, and I can only speak to myself as a therapist of where if I'm not doing what I'm challenging my clients to do, then it doesn't feel authentic to me.
100%.
So if I'm not,
it's the same thing as an exec.
if I'm not working out or trying to stay fit, why are you going to come sit in my office and look at some sloppy, stenchy, like not healthy dude?
Hey, for real.
Who's trying to tell you like, hey, something to stimulate your central nervous system. Maybe you should look into, stimulating your body 1 to 3 times a week, whatever that workout
Smacking
looks
a
like.
Big Mac.
Yeah, like that doesn't make sense. So if I'm telling a couple like, hey, trying to have open room for conversation to be able to receive it, how are you listening? How are you hearing it? How are you staying curious about your partner? So even like for me, some of my own personal stuff is like watching Stephen Bennett's Diary of a CEO. And listening to the one lady that's caught my attention is Esther Perel. She talks about marital and couples dynamics. So like, or what's his name? On Jay Shetty on Purpose podcast. Those are like the 2 people I listen to most when they have guests come through. So like even me, like I need to stay curious about myself, about how I can act in my own marriage. I can't just...
It's constant growth.
Yeah, I can't just rely on what I know. That doesn't work, right? I have to go through every area of life as Quebec, but there's a specific area of life, like Liam Neeson, that I have a certain set of skills
That's funny.
that I have a certain set of skills that I'm like really good at. I think I try to tell even myself, like if I ever met LeBron, the only difference between LeBron James and myself is LeBron's certain set of skills puts him at the upper echelon of the 1% of the culture from like a financial standpoint, from like an athletic standpoint. But everywhere else outside of that, he ain't no different than me.
Yeah.
Right.
He ain't no different. We got to walk the same walk. We got to do the same thing. If he's failing as a husband, hello, I can fail as a husband too.
Right.
Doesn't matter what you know. Doesn't matter how much of it did you know. You still have to walk through it as a person.
Yeah, you got to do it. You got to do it.
I was actually me and Betsy listen to the Office Ladies podcast, and they had Bryan Cranston because he directed one of the, I think it was the work bus episode, and he like almost killed the entire Office cast on accident because they didn't have air conditioning, so he hooked up a trailer air conditioner to like trail behind him, and it was like pulling in carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide or whatever from the exhaust. And say, but anyways, that wasn't the point. But he was talking about how he's been like doing show business for like 20 some years, and he was like, I'm in that stage of my life where like I like talking to older people because they might not know who I am, and he was talking about how like relating to them, like when you get to that certain level of fame, he's like, you never know if you're having a real conversation or not. And I was thinking about that, like, what if I went to like any store and like you have like a simple back and forth with somebody, and you're like I know that person probably has no idea who I am, and so there's not that weird like sense. But like imagine having that sense of like everybody like, or everybody that you like encounter probably knows who you are if you're at that level of fame. Like nobody's, especially like in this area, like if you saw LeBron like coming into Chipotle, like he's not going to get the average experience of life. And yeah.
Yo, I'll tell you about something real, right? Like, and this is like a no names podcast for certain regards, but I'm gonna say the person who I saw because I think it has relevancy, and I talked to Jan about it. So at a point in time in the YouTube space, I was following like a lot of YouTube basketball. Now it's more YouTube golf for me because that's just where I'm at with it. But I stumbled across Devontae Frigga's page. Devontae, he's Division III, Mount Union guy, Cuyahoga guy, Ohio guy, who's really, you could say, leading the industry from a content creation standpoint. Not necessarily street ball, but there's a street ball element to it. But then there's like a high level, very well produced and quality basketball element to like what he does. He's got a very positive message. And so I was walking through Target, and I like walked past an aisle, and I was like, wait, was that Devontae Frigga? And it took a second to register because I had watched a lot of his videos. And so like I doubled back and I like saw him, and I was like, hey man, I just want to let you know, like, I appreciate your content because anytime I try to hold myself accountable to anybody. Anytime I see somebody of notoriety or that I know, I just want to look you in the eye. I want to say, hey, man, I appreciate what you do. I appreciate you as a human. And I want to walk away. I want to have like a very genuine, respectful, like
brief interaction.
Yeah, brief interaction because you're doing your thing. I don't want to be that like, yo, hey, man, like, can I get it?
Yeah.
I don't want to.
They get that everywhere they go.
Right. I don't want to treat you like a caged animal. I don't want to treat you like a showpiece. Like I just want to be genuine. I want to show love. I want to get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
Right.
But like I felt twisted about the situation because I don't want to make him feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like that's the furthest thing that I want to do to anybody. Even if I saw some of the YouTube golfers that I follow, like if I saw them, I would genuinely just want to walk up, treat you like a human being because that's what you are. Let you know I appreciate what you do. And if conversation comes from that, great. But I always want it to be out of love, not out of like I just ran up on you while you're just trying to go about your day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was kind of going back and forth with Q on it a little bit. And like, because sometimes, you know, as a content creator, you get both the positive and the negative, right? So you have one side is like random people wanting to come up, take videos, get annoying, you know, or people coming up and saying hi, which is one thing. But you also are inundated with tweets, comments, and other stuff just of people constantly ripping you to shreds.
Yep.
Right? Like just shitting on your content. So I'm like a big advocate of like if you take that approach, don't think about whether or not it's going to make that person uncomfortable. It might be something that they need to hear that day. Like maybe he read 30 crappy comments on a video the day prior before he went to Target that day, and that interaction is like, oh, that's a reminder that my content has positive impact. You know, because I definitely to a way lower degree deal with the same type of stuff where I'll get DMs from people out of nowhere, or I'll run into somebody at like a local grocery store or something. Like Canton is really the only sphere of influence that ever happens to me in, which I'm grateful for because I can literally go to like Akron or Dover or anywhere else and I don't have as much of a chance of that. But it's why you won't really see me out and about like anywhere outside of maybe some of the downtown bars, but I'm not like going out getting plastered at Jersey's or, you know, something like that.
And bar.
Just know there's like, I know a lot of people like, plus, that's just not my personality type anymore. You know, maybe that was me 22 years old. But you get into that point where, you hear all of this stuff, or maybe you haven't heard anything about your content for a while, and you're constantly posting, and people are liking it, but it's like people inside of your friend group that you're like, oh, well, they're liking it because they like me, not necessarily because the content was impactful and whatever else. But then every now and then, a message out of the blue will show up inside of an IG DM, or you'll run into somebody in a Save-A-Lot, and they'll be like, yo, this, clip that you posted got me thinking about this, and like now I have a job and that I'm really proud of. And I'm like, fuck yeah.
You're like, yeah, dude.
Like, that's awesome. Good for you.
Yeah.
You know? And then on the flip side of that, people are messaging me like, I am so tired of seeing your talking head in my Facebook feed.
You're like, sorry.
And then my rebuttal to that is always like, the algorithm rewards what you watch. So if I'm showing up in your feed, stop watching me.
Yeah.
That's real.
Because if you spend all 30 seconds watching that clip, guess what Facebook's going to think? They're going to think you enjoyed it. And they're going to show you more of it. So if all you see when you scroll is my face, just unfollow me.
Yep.
Like, that just means you're enjoying it anyway. Maybe.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Shout out to you, Mr. Frigga. I'll call you Mr. Frigga because I don't know you like that to call you by your first name, but shout out to you, bro. There is a potential place and space if we continue to work on the podcast that I would love to have you on because I do appreciate your message. I do appreciate how you carry yourself and what you talk about. And I
He's
think
a good
we'd
dude.
have
He did some work with my buddy Mike back in the day.
I think we'd have real good dialogue and real good conversation. So yeah, shout out to you. If you want to find Devontae, find him on YouTube. Again, really good basketball content, really positive message. Does a lot of good things for his community, and he's a positive influence in that type of space. So.
Yeah. I have an idea for how we can dive into like the whole 2 CEOs thing.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that you were potentially about to open up that box, right? So let's position it from the place of a person that's about to become a CEO or potentially becomes a CEO.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
You now have an AMA.
Yeah.
Like this is an Ask Us Anything, right? if you're actively in that experience, you're going to be able to ask better questions. Sure. If we just anchor it in like, what are you anxious about? What are you trying to predict? You know, what parts of the experience are you looking to try to understand at a deeper level?
Well, it's interesting because
excuse me,
you know, my best friend is going to be my right hand in it, and from his standpoint, he's done a lot of entrepreneurial ventures on his own. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the business side of the stuff he's already gone through. I'm driving a lot more of the content at this point. Okay. So for me, it's a very blessed type of situation because I'm not trying to double on all sides of the fence.
Right. That's important. Having a good co-founder relationship is a huge thing.
Will I potentially get deeper into it because him and I, we've been brothers for 25 years? Will there be some give or take there? For sure. Will I have to, understand a bit more about the, opening up an LLC, the tax information, and opening up the own bank account to make sure that when the product is flowing that, we're not only protecting ourselves, licensing things appropriately, just making sure that it is a clean business, right? Yeah. First and foremost, making sure everything is set up. And that's why it's a blessing to have him, who he lives in that world. He lives in that world from like his own career standpoint and from his own experience standpoint, which kind of allows me to kind of hop into it freely, and really focus on my side of the business, which is a lot of the content. So the business is called All Paths. Right now we're working on a project that is getting into kind of the mental fitness space from a mental health standpoint. Once we have things a little bit more buttoned up, I'll speak more in depthly on the project. Yeah. But it's a very cool thing to potentially step out in a way that like I did not foresee. I did not foresee really entertaining the ideas of entrepreneurship in any way, shape, or form. My big brother, who is one of my heroes, he owns Ohio Tea Company. They just opened up a new location.
Yeah, I just showed him
we
the
just
other
drove
day.
past it the other day.
Yeah,
we were on our way to the Polar Plunge.
The owner of the business, him and his father-in-law. So if you guys are around on Fulton Road, right across from, I want to say that's the Circle K, which is diagonally across from Fisher's. Yeah. Ohio Tea Company is located. They just opened up a brand new location. It's a beautiful,
I'll have to go check it out. I've been looking for some loose leaf dandelion tea and I can't find any.
They have a lot of different teas. Tea if you want to replace caffeine, if you want to put some tea in your system for gut health, for better sleep. Like it's not just like you go in and you get just one thing. They have a wide selection of teas. They have the teapots. Like they have everything you need to make sure that you're getting the highest quality experience possible. That's cool. So he went from in his own career path being like a teacher to now he stepped into an entrepreneurial space. So it's
he should collaborate with Cherry Blend. Ooh. Like have Cherry Blend coffee at the tea company, and then Cherry Blend can have Ohio Tea Company tea at the roastery.
I will have to let him know.
That's the first thing that popped into my brain.
I'm like, how can I collaborate?
Yeah. I'm a connector. I mean, that's one of my superpowers for sure.
The people, I think, would ask, if I'm thinking about going into my own business or my own venture, what is some of the things that I have to think about in terms of balancing, not only the business, not only the finances, but balancing just the wellness aspects of
family.
That's a most under addressed area for sure. Yep. So look at that. Q coming in with the clutch question. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
And that's something like, me.
It's my job, baby. That's what I do.
And that's kind of where I'm at this stage of my entrepreneurship. Cause the past, I've been doing working on my own for about I quit Domino's. I was doing half Domino's, half weddings and stuff. But I quit probably in 2021. I think maybe a year and a half into the pandemic.
So you're 3 years deep.
So
you're in the gulag right now.
Yeah, I'm just and we're in the hardest thing, which is entertainment. Yep. We just did a really successful show, but then once you pay everybody out, you're you're like, man, it wasn't like a ton, but we're in the positives this time. So you got to think of it.
Yeah,
you know,
you
it's
started from being in the negatives to breaking even. Now you're making
Now we're
profit,
making
and now
something.
you need to scale profit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So but where I'm at, like, you know, having a 6-month-old, my wife, like balancing it, I'm like in that realm where I'm like, all right, like if I don't balance this, then I do get into those situations where I'm calling Q, like, I gotta fix this marriage, bro. Like, you gotta help me out here.
Yeah.
I need to schedule an appointment.
Amen.
Yeah. And so
Like,
he's like, hey.
I'm just saying it's real.
Yeah. And so I'm trying to be like highly cognizant of that because, you know, like, you know, it's a balance because, you know, a lot of, like right now I'm wearing like a lot of hats and balancing like a million things at once. And, you know, like me and Jan were talking the other day, like how sometimes like you get to the office, you're like, all right, I got this list of things I need to do. But then like a million questions are fired your way
Calls
in succession
are coming in,
and calls.
people are
Charlie
taking-
calls me for the 4th time one day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I didn't get to any of the stuff that I meant to. And then I'm like,
you just go home anxious as fuck.
yeah, and I'm like, when I go home, I gotta be.
What is going on? I'm just dropping F-bombs.
On a
left and right.
Sunday, bro.
I'm going full Gary V after taking the
Yeah.
Eucharist, man. Jeez.
But I love Gary. But yeah, so yeah, I'm like in that stage where I'm like, all right, I gotta figure out, you know, the like the rhythm of where I'm gonna be at in this life, and I'm starting to like try different things. Like last week, you know, I'm editing a lot of these podcasts at the moment, and I'm trying to find a way to offload that, but it's it's one of those things about like a CEO where you're like you're like, all right, there's things that I'm good at that I need to let go of. But then there's that like, ooh, but you know, they're not going to do it the way I do it. And like you told me, like sometimes you got to take that like half day and teach someone to do it how you do it, or maybe like a
Right.
couple days, or if you like, it needs to be a process.
Yeah, we used to have this. We used to have this saying in the military where it's you get shown one or you get taught one, you get to show one, and then you get to do one. So you have to instruct them, then you have to show them how it's done, like while they're doing it with you, and then they need to perform the task for you.
Yep.
And then they're ready to be on their own. Like you can't just stop at showing or teaching them the concept, right? Then you have to do it, and then you have to let them do it. And I've always abided by that. And like every single time I've tried to train an employee on any concept,
Yep.
it's like I will never expect you to do something I don't at least understand decently. So I'm going to show you how to do it, and then, or I'm going to teach you the concepts behind it, like the theory, basically. And then we'll go through one where I do it, and you can critique me and give me ideas, because I always leave that door open, because a lot of times they have a better way of doing things.
Yep. That's
Especially
more efficient.
that's more efficient,
yeah.
or they'll come up with some idea. So I always make that a caveat. Like, this is our time to adjust the process. I'm not saying that mine's perfect, but like, this is how I've gotten here. So if you have any better ideas, I'm open.
Yep.
But this is how I've done it. And then you show me like that you know how to get it done, and then you're on your own. And then I only really quality control.
Yeah.
Right. So they do the majority of the work. It comes to me. I give it a thumbs up, thumbs down, or hey, I need this tweaked, and then it goes out.
Yep.
And then you get to a point where I'm at now where you have to even let go of the quality control.
Yep.
So like I'm trusting RJ for quality control, because that's one of his superpowers. Is he knows all the Excel formulas. He's very, make sure everything's the same font. He makes sure that grammar is really good. Like he's just so much better at it
Yep.
that I'm like, no, I have full trust in RJ to represent Apex in a way that he's not going to let content go out the door that's terrible.
Yeah.
And then I'm completely agnostic to the process now.
Yep.
You know,
Now you can
it
fo-
gets
you're
done
freed
over
up to
here.
focus on other
RJ
things.
QCs it. I go out and I'm doing stuff like this. I'm going out and doing, trying to get James booked for talks, or
Yeah.
working security at a show just so that I can showcase that I'm dynamic.
Yeah.
Other stuff like that. But it is distinct phases, and you're in the phase right now where it's
Yeah. Where I'm like, I'm spinning
you're gonna
all
have
the,
to
I'm spinning
you're
all the
spinning
plates.
all the plates.
And I got a couple of people that are occasionally coming in like, yeah, it's spin. And then they leave. So now I'm like,
And
all
then
right,
I'm
we
like
gotta-
about 2.5 years ahead of that. So
Yeah. So I'm just in the process, and I'm like,
I think that's one thing that's
learning.
reassuring though. Like back to Q's, like addressing the people. Like one thing that I wish that I would have known when I entered it I guess it's kind of like two-parted. One, that there is such a thing as, I learned this in the community that I run now called Indie Collective. It's called like your 3 L's, right? It's not just how you make a living. It's the lifestyle you want that living to provide and how it holds space for your loving relationships. Those are the 3 L's. I only thought about living. I did not think about lifestyle or loving relationships. Yep. And so I had to take a step back like 2 years ago and be like, oh, I want a family. I want kids. I want a relationship. I want all this other stuff. I wasn't leaving any room for it at all. And then
hold up. Hey, man, you need to say that again. The people need to hear that again. Hey, that was some facts. You need to say that.
Hey, it's for real. It's for real.
You need to bless the people again with that.
One more time.
Get a name there.
Come on now, give it to him again. Give it to him again, bro.
But for real, so you get lost in one of those 3 L's, right? It could be your living, your lifestyle, or your loving relationships, right? If you get lost in your loving relationships, your career will suffer, and you won't be able to do some of the things that you do because you're like, and we know guys like this, we know girls like this that lose themselves in a partner. So that's bad, right? So that's going to one direction, right? Lifestyle, these are people that, they may not be making the living and they may not have the quality loving relationships, but it sure looks like it.
Yeah.
Dang, like this dude's like dripped out. He's going to parties all the time, really focused on that lifestyle, but is also like broke,
broke
or
every
like,
weekend.
earning the paycheck to sustain this perception of living a lavish lifestyle, right? And then the people that get lost in the living, which was the case for me, get so invested in building the business or building the thing that they forget, the whole reason why I'm building this thing is so that I can have a decent lifestyle and make room for the loving relationships, right? You lose the other two. And so no matter which one of those you get lost in on the pyramid, like at some point you have to come to grips with the fact that you've created the reality for yourself, right? And that was kind of a coming to Jesus moment like 2-ish years ago, which is the prompt. That 2 years ago for me was year 5.
Yep.
Or not year 5, year 3 or 4,
okay,
right?
Yep.
So same position that you were in. And I had to come to the realization that if I don't let go of some of this stuff, I will never have the room for any of the other 2 things.
Yep.
And that was the motivation that I needed in order to like let go of the steering wheel.
Yep.
It still was super uncomfortable, and I wanted to micromanage the shit out of it. But I kept reminding myself, if I don't do this, I will not have room for these other 2 things.
Yep.
And that will make me really sad in 10 years.
And this is what your residential therapist would tell you if you were sitting in my office. You got to be willing to pay the consequences of what you finna lose.
Yeah.
Right?
Because you're going to lose.
Yeah.
Right?
For real.
And I think for some people, and here's, a spiritual moment. So if you're not in the Christian spiritual world, you can tune this out, or you can figure out how to apply this in your own way. This is just how I conceptualize and where I see it from. Sometimes that might be Satan giving you the low-hanging fruit that will steal from you.
Yeah, for real.
And when he's stealing from you, he's taking everything. There's not just like, I'm going to take a little bit. Nah, I'm taking everything. And that's like one of the things I think people can get caught up in if you speak about like lifestyle. It's like, this lifestyle is great and I'm feeling myself, but look at how much else in other areas that you're losing.
Right.
Like losing.
Yep.
Like stress. If you're stressed out and you're just living into it, one way or another, that you could be like, that's Satan just like making this such a hot priority that think about the joy that I just lost.
Yep.
Whether that was like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, or fear. Fear is going to rob you of everything.
Yep.
And it doesn't care because you're not going to get it back. Live in fear, live like this, commit to this. It will give you X, but what happens when you get X? I don't know if there's a celebrity that I haven't heard in some podcast interview say, when I got to the pinnacle of where I thought was everything, I had nothing.
Constantly.
Nothing. I just put out the best album. I just put out the best movie I ever have put out and received the Emmys and this, that, and the third. But what you didn't know is I was the most depressed, I was the most anxious, and I was the most lost I've ever been. Ever.
Right.
That's not good.
No, it's not. No, and that's why I don't like the idea of like going viral or like making it a goal to go viral. Like you're not ready to go viral.
Yeah.
The majority of people.
Yeah.
And Justin Bieber's a great example of this, right? 13, 14, 15-year-old kid. You're not ready to go viral. Like nobody without temperance and preparation of like the body, the mind, like strengthening yourself up and like taking it in gradual phases, which is why I'm a big advocate for like legacy business mentality versus venture capital business mentality. Is that if you are willing to say, and this was kind of the second half to my answer from earlier, if you're willing to say, I know from years 0 to 3, like this is something else I wish I would have known. For years 0 to 3, it's going to be a shitstorm. And I'm going to surrender to the fact that I'm about to willingly submit to this crap storm, right? Years 3 through 5, they're going to get a little better. You're going to have some highs, you're going to have some lows. You got to weather through it. People are going to come, people are going to leave. That's typically where they call it the storming phase, right? So like everyone's arguing, and I remember having conversations with you saying like, hey, you're about to enter this next phase. And then it happened almost every single
it's
time.
Like clockwork.
Yeah. You lost, 2 or 3 artists. I've lost employees, right? So you enter that 3 to 5 year, and then you're like, okay, years 5 through 7, that's stability and scale. If you can make it, and years 7 through like beyond, if you can survive those first 7 years and really give it everything you've got and continue to adjust and continue to build these skill sets that allow you to be flexible and curious and, learn the hard lessons and let go and all this other stuff, year 7 and beyond is really where like profitability starts to happen. And you start to like this thing that I just invested in, instead of having $100,000 in a 401k, I have $1 million business. But you have to. People want to go from 0 to year 7 and beyond, and the internet has like tricked a lot of people into thinking that you can just
you can go from
skip all of that.
$50,000 a day in like two months.
Exactly.
No, that's not how it works.
And some people can, and it does happen for some people. The people like that wouldn't exist if it wasn't possible, right? And I remind people of that all the time too. But what lessons did you miss out on from being in not being in the gulag from years 0 through 3? What lessons did you miss out on from having to have difficult conversations and fire friends from year 3 to 5?
That's what happens.
What did you listen financially from years 5 to 7 that will not just let you get to $1 million, but let you learn how to keep it and be prudent with it and invest it and like turn it into something long term.
That's kind of what happened with that. What was that guy's name? McFarland, the Fire Festival dude. Who, like he was, he had gotten
that stuff's so wild.
Yeah, it was like that, and then his solution was, I should try to do that again. Right. And I was like,
terrible plan.
I don't know about that.
It's a guy that tanked WeWork trying to buy it back now.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like he, I think he started as like a venture capitalist, like or something, and like one of those like communities, like, oh, I know how the money works, and I know how to run a business and throw events and stuff, and then. Right. The first like big thing he tried, he got too ahead of himself. He didn't learn those hard lessons when the consequences were low, and so then he crashed and burned in like a fantastic way because a lot of that stuff like you would have like me doing events now, like each event we like debrief, like last Monday, like the Buzzman show, we like had like a debrief of like, all right, like what did we do good? Next time, wristbands. We forgot about it.
A gaffing tape. I thought that the gaffing tape on the floor to like know where feedback zones are when people are performing was genius. I think that's such a cool idea.
Insisting on our own sound engineer that's able to like help because if a sound guy doesn't know what's exactly how to do it, like having our own guy, like I gave one of my turntables to practice on because he really took that upon himself to like get back there and help Charlie when Charlie was performing, that kind of stuff. Like,
and that's giving your people tools to better themselves, right? So like you're willing to invest additional resources or things that you're not currently using to take it in a staff member or an artist that's like, oh, I want to be better. I want to do more for the team. Here, let me give you the resources, the time, and the instruction to go do this thing. Yeah. And the importance of having a continuing improvement process. That's another thing I wish I would have like implemented earlier on is being intentional after every single job, after every single time you lose a client, after every single time you land one. Anytime you have a partnership, did it go well? Did it go bad? Sit down with the people that were involved. It doesn't have to take long. It can take 20 minutes. Sometimes with the All Circles guys, it takes like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Just because everyone's talking over each other. I literally have to get out a talking stick sometimes, Q,
Yep.
where I'm like,
all right,
we're going to pass the book.
It's usually a random book.
But if you get everybody down that was involved, you only need, hey, what was one thing that we knocked out of the park, like that you're really excited that we were able to do? And then one thing that you think that we could make better. You don't want to say like something that was like a deficit or something that was terrible. You want to keep the language positive, right? So what is something that we can improve on for next time?
Yep.
Everybody goes around the room. If you have 4 or 5 people that were involved, now you've got 4 or 5 things that you did great and 4 and 5 improvement points. Takes 20 minutes.
Yep. And like people throw out solutions, and we kind of, like the pricing model, like we all kind of like talked around and we came up with a good solution. And then this next show we're going to implement that, see how that does, and then
continuous improvement.
keep.
And if you don't have that,
we keep doing the same show every.
It's the same
that's
thing
what
as
we've
like
been doing.
if you're not implementing advice that you get from therapy, you end up living the same 6 months of your life for 5 years in a row.
Yep.
Yes.
He's like, exactly.
Yeah. No, it's real. And I think flexibility, adaptability is super important in all of these things, and being willing to self-reflect.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody is above self-reflection. But there's a challenge with self-reflection that I think everybody struggles with, is our inner critic is very loud.
Yep.
So we're going to self-reflect easily on negative because negative is overly powerful and stimulating to the cognitive brainstem. This is why
it's a protective mechanism too.
Yeah, and this is why everything is negative, right? It's highly potent, highly powerful, and highly stimulating to our brains. That's why Facebook is negative. That's why the news is negative. That's why we like the underdog story, or we like watching somebody fall from grace. That's why movies are usually typically negative in some way, shape, or form, is because it stimulates us so highly that it takes much more positive stimulus and our willingness to be vulnerable to allow the positivity to shine through, to be able to have a balanced perspective. So, if you're reflecting on yourself and you're reflecting on your business, or even me as a clinician, I have to reflect on also what is actually going really well. Yep. Yes, I might not be progressing at the rate that I want to be, or I might not be retaining information, or maybe that was not a good session because maybe I got too involved, or I got too passionate, or I was too challenging, or too direct, or too forward. That's okay because it's part of the growing process. Yep. But within that, there was probably, hey, I asked a really good question there. Mm-hmm. Or I said something, or the client said something that was very good. I need to make sure that I capture those things and champion some of those things so it just doesn't come across as, distorted, negative noise that is what we get everywhere else. Because we have to have some sort of momentum moving forward at some point.
Right. Yeah.
You got to leave the team with momentum. You got to, as leaders, we have to be able to display hope. Yep. Right. We get too into being able to give constructive criticism or feedback, or hey, even some of our most famous or favorite athletes, like, oh, I dropped 61 but we still lost. I have to imagine in that reflection of I dropped 61 from an NBA standpoint but we still lost, that next day when you're watching film, you're seeing like a lot of the positive possessions, or a lot of the positive on the ball or off the ball decision making that continues to build momentum, that also motivates you to continue to pursue getting to that next level, which is why balance and intention is very, and communication and trust, and trying to find people around you that you trust that can provide you with some good feedback that isn't about like taking you down. It's about pushing love into you. It's about building you up, but being honest. So I hope, from a listener standpoint, if you guys are ever listening to our podcast, we're like, hey, you guys were a bit off here, or, you guys could have cleaned this up here. I think the three of us are secure enough individuals to sit there and say like, yeah, maybe that was a little bit of an off day there for us. And, we appreciate that feedback. Or even if we walk away from the situation saying like, hey, we need to tighten this up just a little bit, or we need to do a little bit more pre-recording work on the front end to make sure that we're tightened up. We'll do that, but it's not with this like, I'm trying to beat you down and I'm trying to hold you down and nothing is good, because there's probably a lot of good that is within that.
Yeah. I think it makes me think of a piece of advice that I got from a mentor 4 or 5 years ago. It was like right when Apex first started, and it's been like one of the most invaluable pieces of advice that I think that I've implemented. And the whole idea, because it wasn't really just like a statement, it's more of like a concept. So the whole idea is seizing opportunity, not just seeking it. And so the seeking portion of opportunity is like building goals lists, vision boards, targets, having key performance objectives, which are basically just like sub goals that you set for yourself with numbers attached to them and dates, so that you can hold yourself accountable to like growth. Because if you're trying to paint a 1 year or 5 year vision, that growth doesn't happen without the 2 week and 90-day goals. It just doesn't happen. It won't manifest. So that's the seeking portion, right? The seizing portion is like, you can seek opportunity all you want. You can paint this massive vision of what you want to do in the future. What skill sets and resources have you accumulated or built for yourself that will make you capable of being able to seize that opportunity if and when it presents itself to you? And so his whole concept was learn the principles behind how to make your brain flexible, right? So working out, diet, constantly challenging it with reading, doing stuff like cold plunges, or learning a new instrument, constantly trying to find like some type of hobby to tinker with or master, right? It doesn't have to take up all of your time, maybe 20% of your week, 10% of your week, but something where you're just learning something new, right? Keeping your mind flexible, doing creative stuff, right? Doing things that you don't want to have to do. So like catching yourself in the middle of the day and being like, I really don't want to fold that laundry. And then telling yourself, nope, I'm going to go do it. I'm going to fold it right now. Doing that around the house. This is why the whole making your bed principle is such a big thing. It's not part of it is having a clean space gives you more of a clean mind. It's not the majority of why that task is important. The majority of it, the time, we wake up in the morning and we don't want to have to waste time doing that thing, right? It's not going to affect you once you leave the room and you're out in your daily life. You're not thinking about the messy bed at home, right? Or maybe you are. I'm not.
Just stressed.
But if you wake up and you're like, oh, I don't feel like making my bed this morning, but you choose to make it anyway. And this goes for the gym. It goes for drinking your shake in the morning. It goes for eating a healthy meal instead of, something that's quick and easy. Something that you don't want to have to do, that's simple, and you do it, means that when you get to bigger decisions in life, or you get to, conversations that you're going to have a difficult conversation with this person. I don't want to have to do that.
Yeah.
Your brain has already learned that we don't have an option here.
Yeah.
He's going to make us do it. Anyway, so let's just start thinking about how to approach a situation instead of how to avoid it, right? But that doesn't happen at that level unless you're doing those smaller stuff.
Yep.
And so I always appreciated that piece of advice, because I feel like if you constantly keep yourself in a state of being ready to seize anything that comes to your table, you keep yourself healthy. To Q's point, you're keeping yourself spiritually fit. You're keeping yourself physically fit. You're keeping yourself mentally fit. Then when somebody shows up that is doing that same level of accountability, or wants to seek advice from you, or wants to do business with you, or wants to do anything, they see, oh, this person's capable of holding themselves accountable, right? The situation presents itself in a way that, you're capable of being that. If somebody were to ask you fitness advice, you're capable of being that person to give fitness advice if you're embodying it in a way. Whereas if you get over caught up in the seeking portion, you can paint all of these big ideas, but even if they do present itself, it's like, oh man, these are the people that you run into that are like, I could have totally done that if this, and this would have been a thing. Like, I would have definitely been there. Like, well, why weren't this, and a thing already before the opportunity presented itself? How long had you been thinking about this being a potential opportunity? And they're like, oh, like, I've been wanting this for the last 4 or 5 years. I'm like, why didn't you get ready for it?
Yeah.
You're not ready to receive it. And I mean, I can open like the whole Christian, reason behind why that's important, but I think I'll stop there and see what you guys think.
I'll say this, if, it's a simple quote, but you ain't got to get ready if you stay ready.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. I was just talking we were just talking in the group chat the other day. I'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Yep.
Yeah. And I mean, to sum up everything for the day is this journey of life. I don't care who you are. I don't care what stage you're at. I don't care what your dollar figure says. I don't care what's in your bank account.
Yeah, for real.
It requires nothing but work. And it requires nothing but an ability to submit to what it takes to be the most well-balanced, intentional, loving, supportive, hardworking person.
Was it Stutz? Is that the documentary where he talks about like constant work being one of the principles of life force?
Constant work.
I think it was Stutz.
It is Stutz.
Yeah.
Constant work, pain, and stress or something of that nature. I forget.
Yeah, there was one. It was like very Dostoevsky-esque. It was very,
But it was super true.
That's a great documentary if you guys have not seen that.
Jonah Hill, Stutz, Netflix. Yeah. You can watch it from a clinical standpoint if you're a clinician out there like myself or social worker or in the helping profession. You can learn a lot from Stutz. I've learned a lot from him. I've tried to implement some of his stuff just in my own personal practices about trying to leave clients with something tangible instead of just pie in the sky type of stuff. Like I want my clients to have something that they can work on, that they can, quantify or qualify in data, that there's something happening. And you can also watch it from a client standpoint or just an open-minded standpoint because Jonah Hill does a very good job of engaging Stutz in a very good conversation where you get both dynamics. Yeah. So that is on Netflix. That is still on Netflix. I do show clients certain clips of that. To this day, I think it's a very, very good resource.
Yeah. Speaking of resources, now that you're like, you're at that dipping toes point of your like entrepreneur like journey, who are some people that you're like starting to learn from now?
Stephen Bartlett for sure. I mean, he's already talked about that.
Yeah.
I would listen to the Diary of a CEO.
Yeah, I'd listen to that episodes. One. Maybe not early stuff. Again, I still listen to a lot of Jay Shetty, but again, I try to stay in my lane. And right now, my lane is mental health content. I mean, even here, like I try on the podcast to very much make sure I stay in my lane when I'm saying things or where I'm speaking from because that's what I know. Yep. And sometimes I think we feel that we have to be able to cover all lanes, and that's not the case. Again, a quick little example.
Can't span all the plates.
Yeah.
J. Cole, Jermaine Cole, J. Cole, if you know him, rapper, he said it best. He said, the rap game it's like a track meet. Everybody has a specialization in a different event, but it's all under the umbrella of a track meet. So again, you could look at that from a business standpoint is just saying, okay, if I'm going to get into somebody else's lane and that's like what they specialize in, I have to be humbly willing to learn how to be in that lane before I can have ownership over that lane. Yep. I can't just hop in that lane and try to play around and act like I'm something that I'm not. Yeah. Right. You got to do your due diligence and properly learn how to be invested and fully vulnerable and hardworking in that lane to become a master of that lane. So early on in my entrepreneurial journey, again, I'm just trying to stay on the content side of the house right now. And I know that my partner who I'm going into business with here soon will, give me that wisdom when it's time. And, he'll put me into a situation of trying to make some more business decisions. And that's where I'm getting some of that tutelage of, how far am I going to step over on that side of the fence? When do I need to step over on that side of the fence? What type of research do I need to do if I'm going to start to engage a lot more on that side of the fence? And if not, making sure him and I are on the same page of like, hey, man, I don't want that. Yeah. Like, I want you to have that or, It's
better to be clear early than later down the road.
do we need to, for at the time of the business, do we need to bring somebody in that can take that on for us? Like, how do we envision this going? And just... again, he said it a lot of times in our conversations, we need to really outline and define, people's roles so that this can be successful. And again, we're brothers. So it's like, we want to make sure the relationship between the both of us is always first and foremost, that this business, never gets in the way ever. Right. I would much rather see this be a flash in the pan than lose my right hand as a friend. Yeah. Right. As somebody that I walk through life with. Right. So.
Yeah, and that distinction is hard, because especially getting into the business, like even with the guys, like we're all really good friends, but there is that business kind of dynamic too, where you have to operate on like two levels.
There has to be,
and you got to something I've learned is like distinguishing between like a friendship conversation and a business conversation, like especially with like someone like Charlie, like we we talk all the time, and I'm like, is this more like business conversation, or are you going through something? And so I try to like, yeah, that's a good thing going forward. Like preserve, as long as you prioritize, like, all right, like we're friends, and then when we get into this space, this is like business talk, stuff
Right.
like that. So
Oh yeah.
it's hard. It's a hard balance for sure, because it's kind of, it's like going to our first conversation of like disconnecting like your occupation with, family. Like, it's like you can easily psychoanalyze a business partner.
Yeah, I think that is just really about consistency. Like as long as, because you can't draw that line 100% early on because you don't know where the line is.
Yeah,
sure.
Like you gotta, like you can define it as much as you want, but as soon as you start to get into actually building the thing, like the line's gonna shift. So like defining it's important, but then also constantly, like you're saying, just if you are consistent in the way that you approach things, then people will know how to approach you, right? Like I have no issue coming in and sitting down and being very direct, and like I'm never demeaning, you know, when I tell somebody to like, hey, you've overspoken your turn, it's time to pass to the next person. That not one time when we were in there when I was like, telling two side, no, we're swapping over tie, like, hey, let's swap over. Was anybody like, oh, fuck you, Jan? You know what I mean? But it's because I'm consistent. I'm like, hey, we're in a team meeting, like, ding, the thing happened. We are now in this space. My role, and Two Side even messaged me afterwards. He was like, I left that meeting feeling like really good. Like, thanks for that. Like, my role is accountability in that moment. Your role is to take notes. My role is to remind you to take notes. Right?
I was sitting there. I was like, we should write that down. I had a pen in my hand. And I was like, that's
we
my
should
job.
write that down.
I'm the one that's going to write that down.
And then you can move on, right? And so, that could be its whole episode on its own, how to lead meetings for continuous improvement or how to have those difficult conversations. But for the good peoples, where can they find us?
You can find us on Instagram at the Levels of Consciousness. Right.
The LOC pod,
LOC pod. Yep. You can also find us on YouTube at the LOC pod. That's where everything will be at. If you wish to message us, that's where you'll be able to get in contact. That's where I'll be interfacing the most with people. That's where we're at right now.
Awesome.
Right. If you want to get in touch with these boys, again, All Circles Media.
We'll have links down like in the
description,
notes and everything. So
right. Apex Communications. My challenge to all of you is, try to approach every day with gratefulness. If you wake up grateful and you wake up just being thankful to have a problem, there's a lot of people that don't wake up that could have a choice to deal with a problem or not, right? There is far worse situations we all can find ourselves in, but if you wake up on the stance of just being grateful to wake up, being grateful to sip that coffee, being grateful to get in your car and drive, send a text, tell the spouse I love you, see your kids, have a good day, have a bad day that turns into a good day. More often than not, at the end of the day, you're going to have a good day. That's what I'm trying to live on during this year. So like where we started, I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful that Adam opened up this space. I'm grateful that Lori Moline connected me with Jan. Like it just makes a lot of things a lot easier and a lot more fruitful in that way. So we, on the behalf of all of us, appreciate you. We love you. We thank you for riding along with us. Your feedback, as always, is welcomed, and we'll catch you next time.
Peace.
Deuces. Peace.